think I know you had a little bit of trouble hearing me there. I think the production value on this was interesting because we had no snow when we first started rehearsing in the morning, and then 2 or 3 hours later there was like a 2 or 3 inches of snow absolutely everywhere on everything. As you can tell there, even in our hair, and which reminds me that was a wig. My hair was stuffed up behind the wig here. Somebody actually mentioned that and talked about that in my vlog during the week.
Well, how goes the battle?
You know, McLeod here is he gets really, you know, he's like, I'm the guy that has to I have a type of view on life, and Darius turns around and says, well, take a look at this, look at all these people that are dead, you know, is this, you know, what are the people that have died? Do you think, you know, your honor and everything else is going to really affect them anymore? And I think that was a real moment for McLeod. And as you can see it here, see, Darius was in his ear, and you know, it's he became the mentor that the producers wanted. And I think it was a great relationship. This.
But I wonder what these men think about that, about convictions and compatriotism now.
Also, Werner Stocker was a very nice man. He actually came to Vancouver for this one scene. That was all it was. It was one scene he actually came to Vancouver for. Okay, so there it is. So that scene was. If you have questions about that scene or comments about that scene, put them up on the board and we'll answer them. Or I'll answer them because we've got 2 more scenes I want to go through as well. But you know, talk about that. People are actually talking about my ponytail at the moment. How long am I going to let it grow? I'm not sure at the moment. It's kind of like in a mini bun at the moment, but I was trying to see if I could grow it, and the beard was kind of changing a little bit. I might even shave that off. I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, but ponytail, as I said in that particular episode, the hair was shoved under a wig that was put on from behind. I actually think that one was a full wig. I can't remember now, but we were always, every week I come in and okay, what are we doing this week? Short hair, long hair, medium hair, add hair, whatever. But it was kind of fun, you know, to change every week, and that was one of the strengths of Highlander, was the fact for an actor that you weren't doing the same thing every week. It wasn't a procedural show. It was a show where, you know, that allowed you as an audience member and us as actors to try something different. And you know, that's why we created the timeline that McLeod had, where he you know, was a slightly different character throughout the ages. And Band of Brothers I think was a turning point for a lot of people on this in this series, not only for us as actors, but I think also for audience members, because it did really kind of make the series go, oh, okay, actually this is really kind of cool. It's got really cool production value, and you know, it didn't have quite that much before, and this was the one show that, as I said, split between Paris and Vancouver, but it was a totally different thing. Somebody said, Dawn Bengal said it was, you know, it was a turning point for you. Thank you, Dawn, for that, because I think it was, and it was something about that episode that nailed it. I think it was a variety of things. I think there were a lot of different factors in that episode that came together. There was, you know, the Darius character was a very big part of that, but it was also the grandeur of some of the sets that we had. I mean, that particular set there, if you had no snow, would have been a slightly different looking set, but you know, it gave some sort of mysticism to it. Snow kind of does. There's some sort of mystic thing about it. So it gave another added production value to it, as well as the final fight in the sulfur pit, which that was quite something. We can talk about that in a second. But you know, there was a lot of different factors, and as I said, it was also a factor where you see a character kind of have an aha moment where Darius says something to him, you know, where he says, "I'm a warrior, and I fight for the things that are just," and Darius says, "Well, you know, what about all these people? Do they really care about that right now? They're dead." So it kind of made McLeod think for a second, and I think that's where you see, it's one of the few moments, I think, in the Highlander series where you see a character actually be addressed that changes him slightly for the next period of his life, because as I said before, MacLeod went through various sections of his life where he was slightly different, and this was one of those moments that actually changed that for him. You know, the other one, I think somebody had mentioned to me before, was when and this was another moment that we did see on the show, and that was with Where Do I Come From, which was in the second episode that we did, where MacLeod is abandoned by his father, and you know, where do I come from? The pain of not knowing who he was. You know, I talk about this in the Peace Fund podcast that we do, where we're talking about different things that kids' lives suddenly change, and how traumatic that is, and how lasting that moment is. Well, that happened the same for MacLeod here. He was a young man at the time, where he's suddenly become immortal, has no idea. His whole family and his clan have abandoned him. Even his father says, "You're no son of mine." And so, what am I? What do I do? You know, it was something that another one of those moments that was pivotal, I think, in the series. And I think a lot of you guys actually did talk about that. You talked about, you know, what were the moments that you really kind of remembered, and what you did. Let's try and go to another clip. I think we'll talk about the clip, because I did talk a little bit a minute ago about how we shot between Paris and Vancouver, but the other thing that we didn't talk about was how the production staff changed. Now, in this show, and I actually just thought about that for us, we have two stunt coordinators, or two swordmasters in this, because this was, Peter Diamond was a fantastic stunt coordinator. He worked on so many different films, and he came in when we were in Paris shooting. He came in to actually help out Bob Anderson when Bob came over, because Bob worked for, I think it was the first season and a half, and then Bob took over again in the second season. But you can see the difference in the sword work here, well, because especially with the katana being a two-handed weapon, whereas we were using a lot of one-handed weapons in that moment there. But again, this was a scene that Darius was involved in, and it was another moment that you see MacLeod having had his relationship with Darius for a number of years now, and was kind of understanding the concept of what Darius was doing, hiding in a church, but that wasn't MacLeod's road, but he did understand it. So I think there was a really good friendship between the two of them, and that's where you see them constantly playing chess together, where they're trying to figure out the next move, and Darius constantly throwing snippets of knowledge into him. So let's take a look at this next scene here, and let's talk about it. It's when Darius has just been stabbed in the church, and the bad guy, who was actually played by Peter Diamond, comes out, and standing outside is Duncan MacLeod. Here comes Peter now.
Another priest. We are blessed.
Where's Darius?
The priests in this quarter are a surly lot, aren't they, boys?
And if you look,
You made a mistake.
action stuff here.
I'm no priest.
Attack!
Don't kill him. Let him go.
Very, very quickly.
Leave him.
And again, though, here comes Darius, who, you know, comes out and says, "Don't kill this dude."
He'll only kill innocent people who can't rise from the dead.
You know, he says,
Why have you done
I can't
this?
keep, you know, doing this, but
What else was I supposed to do, Darius? Tell me that.
This is my world.
I can't be like you.
So he's gonna have to do that.
Maybe I'm not old enough or wise enough. I just can't stand by and let...
Another key moment for MacLeod, because
You're leaving me?
you know, this is where
Yes,
you've
I'm going
seen
to
the church,
America.
and some of you have actually seen the church.
The hatreds just run too deep here.
Let's listen to this.
Maybe it will be different in the New World.
I would not rob you of that hope.
Goodbye, Darius.
Peace be with you.
And the funny thing there is, you know, there it is. Okay. So I think that kind of showed the how can I put it? It was the thing. He says, "Peace be with you," and McLeod kind of smiles, which was a two-tone thing for me. It was one of those things where, yes, it was "Peace be with you," but it was like, yeah, okay, I get you. Can't do for me, but I do understand it. I'd like to be like that. I mean, there's a variety of things that were actually in that scene. So if you've got any questions about this scene or any thoughts about maybe the church or who Darius was or what Peter Diamond's background was, I'll be happy to answer that. The church itself was a fantastic little church. I mean, it was such a joy to work in that. It was very close to where we shot the barge, actually. It was probably about 200 meters away. It was the other side of Notre Dame. If you remember seeing Notre Dame behind the barge, if you imagine the store was the other side of that, on the same side of the street as the barge was, it's pretty much where it was. It was near the Shakespeare bookshop, actually. Beautiful little church. I believe it's still there. You know, been there for obviously many years, and made of stone, and but it was very quaint, very nice to shoot in there, and had people coming to visit it while we were shooting as well. They popped their heads inside the room going, what's going on in here? What's this? You know, because in the first year, Highlander was not, people didn't know what Highlander was. They knew what the films were. They had no idea what the series was, and nobody had seen it. So in the very first season, they're like, oh, there's some sort of filming going on. Okay, what's that? But it was fun. And somebody just asked, did I always prefer to shoot on location as preferred to a set? Well, you know, locations kind of give you something different. They give a sense of reality, in a sense, to the moment. You're out, and so that you have to react like you do when you're walking outside. You're reacting to different things. You're reacting to life that's walking around you, and sometimes that life would occur in the scene. Like somebody would beat their horn, or somebody would shout something from across the street, or you know. So you'd have to deal with that. And I remember actually when I shot Endgame with Christopher Lambert, we shot it in Romania, the opening scene where we meet, and I remember there was actually a real person came in and stood kind of right in front of the camera because we were shooting, you know, in the middle of the street. Yes, we had our extras, but there were certain people kind of wandered in, and this guy stood there and was kind of standing around. He was looking around like this. Nobody stopped him. He just came in and hung out on the set. So there are certain parameters that happen when you shoot on a scene, on a street scene, rather than on set. Now on set you have the luxury of being not as cold. When we shot Paris, we were shooting in January, February, March, which was pretty chilly at that time. And you know, even inside when we shot in the barge, we'd have massive heaters because it was kind of cold. So you come out from a nice warm trailer and the crew was all bundled up and they've been standing there for hours, and you kind of do your scene. And I kind of find it funny because it's a shame in a sense, because there is a break between the crew and the cast, and I always wanted to bridge that because I felt crew people are just people anyway. But there's a lot of time where the cast gets special treatment. They get the undergarments, they get the coats to put on, they get nice teas to be given. The crew's like, well, put whatever else you've got on during the day. Make sure you stay warm, and the craft service is over there, and that's where you go get it. And even now with the pandemic, what's happened is that division has gotten even greater, because a lot of protocols now on sets won't allow the cast and crew to mingle or talk to each other. The craft service area is all wrapped. You have to go in there, and I've heard this, that people have times to go into the craft service area. So it's changed the whole ecosystem of being